This is a presentation from the 2013 Cannabis World Summit. Please visit www.cannabisworldsummit.com for more great cannabis information, which is available to you completely for free. This information is being made available to you in part thanks to our sponsors. Please visit their websites to learn more about their excellent products and services. The following presentation is for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Leaves of Hope Productions, Inc. Please note that regardless of any statements expressed or implied in the following presentation, that we do not condone you breaking any laws. We are not providing any legal, medical, or financial advice of any kind. No comments about cannabis being a cure for any medical use, expressed or implied, is to be taken as a claim or guarantee. None of the statements have been verified by the FDA of the United States, Health Canada, or the governing organizations of your particular country. And again, this information is being provided for informational purposes only, and the participants exercise their freedom of speech discussing what they believe to be true. We do not guarantee the accuracy of any information provided. It is your responsibility to evaluate the information before you choose to make any use of it. Please consult with a doctor knowledgeable about cannabis prior to using cannabis, and or prior to discontinuing any medications you may be currently using. Please check with the laws of your country and region to determine whether you are legally permitted to use and or grow cannabis prior to any involvement with cannabis yourself. Even though we believe that cannabis ought to be legalized, we do not condone you violating any laws. Please review the legal disclaimers on the Cannabis World Summit website and only proceed to enjoy this presentation if you agree with all legal disclaimers, agree to hold the company, Leaves of Hope Productions, Inc., and the presenters harmless and are of legal age in your region. Thanks to Kevin MacLeod and Incompetech.com for the music used in this introduction.
So hello, Susan. Thank you so very much for accepting this interview with us. And you know what? I would just like to express to everybody listening to the Cannabis World Summit that I've invited Susan for a very special reason. I hold her in very high esteem. I have very much a high respect for her, and I would highly recommend that everybody listening to this call today pay special attention to the messages that she has to share, because she truly is a wise woman and she has a lot of valuable insights to share, particularly with those who are using cannabis for healing purposes. Now, as of course was mentioned in the little introduction about Susan, Susan is a fantastic herbalist. I, of course, have learned a number of things from Susan myself, from the numerous video recordings that she has online, and of course her forums, and she has some books as well that would be of interest to a lot of you listening to this today. And my path with cannabis had started from herbalism. I had been studying herbs for a number of years just because of personal interest in them, but also I was working with herbs to heal my own body with my own ailments, which is what sort of prompted me towards cannabis. After learning about herbs and using herbs respectfully, for a number of years I kept on stumbling across information how cannabis could help me with my particular ailments, and of course I deferred any further exploration about cannabis because it's illegal. It's a horrible drug. It's the devil weed. But now I've come 180 in that understanding, and I no longer consider it the devil weed. I actually consider it to be an angel weed. It is truly misrepresented, and of course it is an herb, and it is here to heal us, as much as most of you who are listening to this already know. But today we have a special, delightful treat. We have Susan Weed, who is a master herbalist, who will share with us some wonderful insights about how to use cannabis for healing, as many of you are already interested in. However, we're going to go a step further, looking at other herbs, how those other herbs can actually help you. So hopefully today will actually be a start of a new, wonderful journey for many of you, where you actually explore what other herbs, what the world has to offer for you. So Susan, thank you very much for being a part of this interview.
I'm so glad to be here. Green blessings, everyone. I would just like to correct one perhaps slight misapprehension. I am not a master herbalist. Because when you're a master of something, then you have mastery. I'm a mistress of the herbs, because when you're the mistress, then you have mystery.
I like that.
Yes, and I don't like to be in a relationship with plants where I am their master. I don't go much for power over relationships. So that's why I'm the mistress of herbs, and I want to remind us all that herbal medicine is people's medicine, that it is the medicine of the people, by the people, and for the people. And still today, worldwide, over 90% of all health care is done in the home with local common herbs. So what we're talking about, although it may seem strange or unusual to people in the United States, is the most common thing throughout the world.
But I also love your respect for the plants, that rather than considering yourself master over them, that you consider them an ally in a sense, wouldn't you not?
Absolutely. I introduce people to their green allies, and so that we can all be relationship. I mean, let's face it, the herbs are our elders. The plants were here long, long, long before people. And as a matter of fact, so far as we can tell, the rise of people is due to the bounty of oxygen that the plants create. So without the plants, there's no us. And I think that that gives us a better sense of our relationship with all of these plants, and especially when we come into working with what I call power plants. And power plants are plants that have sometimes I call it a star quality, you know? Like if you think about somebody like Elizabeth Taylor or Marilyn Monroe, and you set them out and you look at them and take them apart, well, you're not going to find any body parts that anybody else doesn't have. They pretty much got 2 legs, 2 eyes, the whole thing. And yet there's some special energy there that we say, wow, that's a star. And that's the same thing with certain plants, which I call power plants. And there's a difficulty, in a way, with stars and power plants, and that is that they shine so brightly that it's easy for us to become enthralled with them. And I mean literally enthralled. A thrall is like a servant, right? So we become the servitors to those plants, not the masters, not the equals, but the servants of the plants. And if you read The Botany of Desire, then you will see this theme really played out, where he looks at 5 plants, including marijuana, and talks about how those plants have used us. And, of course, plants that you would think perhaps would be more innocuous, like tulips and apples. Apples grow naturally only in one very small valley in Turkey. And yet look what apple has caused us to do. Apples are now planted all over the world.
I did not know that.
Indeed. So in Botany of Desire, he, as I said, really, gives the whole book to this theme that plants actually cause us to do certain things for them. And the power plants are the plants that are most likely to enthrall us and to cause us to do things. And so I say that there are 3 things that we need to have in place in order to work wisely and well with the power plant. And marijuana is definitely a power plant. First of all, and that's what we're talking about right now, is we must have respect for the plant. We must come with a very high regard for the particular power plant that we are working with, even to the point where some of my mentors have said that we should come with praise on our lips. Among Native Americans, some groups of Native Americans who grew tobacco believed that tobacco was such a power plant that you could not look at it even when it was growing. And they would go to the places where they grew tobacco either blindfolded and work around the plants with blindfolds on, or they would have them in like kind of a maze so that you couldn't see them as you approached. And when you got to a certain point, you could close your eyes or turn backwards. So I'm not saying that we have to grow our own marijuana and not look at it. I'm simply kind of setting the stage here for how our more native ancestors would respect a power plant, to come with an offering of cornmeal, to come with an offering of your own hair, to breathe with the plant. And this is one of my favorite exercises for encouraging people to give respect to the plant. It's a very simple exercise. You simply sit with the plant and you breathe out. And I'm going to ask you now, what happens to the breath that you're breathing out? That's carbon dioxide, right?
Yes.
And what happens to it?
Oh, wow. What a beautiful concept. I have never considered it that way. You're returning the gift back to the plant. They give us the oxygen. We give them what they need back in return.
That's
Carbon
right.
dioxide.
So carbon dioxide, one carbon, two oxygens. The first thing the plant has to do is to turn that into carbon monoxide. One carbon, one oxygen, because that's the compound that starts photosynthesis. And so that other oxygen is kicked out of the plant, and then you inhale, and you take in the oxygen that the plant has just created. And you can.
So I guess there's another benefit to singing to your plants. You're literally spewing carbon dioxide upon them with your lovely voice.
So I call this the giveaway breath, because you are giving yourself away to the plant, and the plant is giving itself away to you. And there it is in every breath you take right now. This breath you're taking right now is a giveaway dance with the plants. From the very first breath that you took when you came out of your mother, which was a gift to you from the plants, to the very last breath that you will breathe as you die, which is your gift back to the plants. Every breath in between is a giveaway dance. So we start here with the giveaway dance, and we say, I honor you. I wish to work with you. Step number 1, honor the plant. Step number 2, honor yourself. Self-worth and self-love are key concepts in the wise woman tradition. We cannot come to something of power thinking of ourselves as powerless, or the inevitable will happen. All right? So we must come in our own power. And if you feel that you don't have any personal power, let me tell you the simplest way to build personal power, and that is to take on responsibilities.
Interesting. Okay.
Any responsibility power. The apprentices who come and live with me are given the responsibility to go out into nature, into the property here, and to herd the goats. And they are out for 5 to 7 hours, wandering around in the fields and the forests with the goats and being responsible for them. And within a few days, they find themselves feeling far better about themselves and feeling far better about their lives because they have a responsibility for something. Modern life takes away responsibility, and thus it takes away our power.
Thank you. That's absolutely beautiful, and I'm sure that will touch the minds and the hearts of many who will listen to this.
So 3 steps. Step 1, we honor the plant. Easy way to do that, giveaway breath. Step 2, we honor ourselves and see ourselves as a person of power. Easy way to do that, become more responsible. And step 3, we join together in a ceremony or a ritual way. And we might say to someone, well, why do you want to get married? You've been living together. I have friends who've been living together for 20 years, and they got married last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, why do you want to do this? You've been living together for so long. And they said, we want a public ceremony of commitment. We want other people to recognize what we're doing. And so we create ceremony and ritual because it bumps what we're doing into a broader, greater, wider kind of thing. Instead of just, it's me and the marijuana, now all beings of power. The marijuana is all power plants, and our relationship has the ability to confer the greatest possible good on the greatest possible amount of beings. And we get this by doing a simple ritual. And what might that ritual be? Well, there's a great variety of ways to do ritual, but one thing that is pretty common for many rituals is that it happens at a certain time.
Okay.
So a lot of people do a ritual toward the end of December, yes?
Yes, Christmas or New Year's.
or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa. There's all kinds of holidays
Solstice.
for that. But it occurs at a certain time, right? We don't just say, hey, I think I'll celebrate solstice today. No, we actually have a certain time. So,
and preparation for that, too.
In our ceremony with marijuana, we want to have a certain time. And, of course, smoking times throughout the world are those interesting times when the light is changing. Dawn and dusk. And we smoke and we exhale that breath into these changing times, into the dusk, into the dawn, with our prayers. So that we smoke not merely for ourselves, but we smoke for the benefit of all beings.
You know what? I was going to ask you later on in the conversation to talk about the spiritual aspect of cannabis, but it seems that we're already beautifully going into there. And just for all the listeners, I will be bringing this back to the medicinal aspects later on. But since we're already flowing in this direction, because, of course, what you're talking about just now is putting a prayer on the smoke, much like the Native Americans would with the tobacco, and, of course, a lot of other cultures with various different incenses would pray with the sacred plants in that way. Could you talk specifically about the spiritual aspect of cannabis? And, of course, there's a lot of cultures who do use cannabis spiritually, but I get the sense that you have a deeper understanding and reverence about cannabis from a spiritual perspective, and I'm just hoping you could share a little bit more about that with us as well today.
Yes, and I want to start out by talking a little bit about our terminology.
Mm-hmm.
So, a common word that's used is high. And you might ask someone, did you smoke that marijuana? Did you get high? Or you might say to someone, would you like to smoke some marijuana? Would you like to get high? And so we have to ask ourselves, what is high? And high means to be above other things, yes?
Yes. High perspective.
A high perspective means to be above things. And I find that the idea of being above, which we have already talked about here in our conversation, leads one not to self-worth, but to egotism. And there is a difference. Well of ourselves, but we don't want to think well of ourselves because we think poorly of others. And high is that direction, isn't it? Getting higher means we are climbing the ladder and leaving others in our wake. And so what I would like to suggest for our new view of spirituality is that we think of spirituality as expansion. Which could include high, but it also includes low. And it includes in front and behind and to either sides. I walk in beauty, beauty before me, beauty behind me. I walk in beauty, beauty beneath me, beauty above me. I walk in beauty, beauty all around me. So, to me, spirituality is about expansion. It is about that beauty all around me, that I don't look down on. And when I'm high, I have no choice but to look down on things. My own body is 90% bacteria and only 10% Susun weed. And that's true of every single human body. If I try to drag myself up into high, then I can't really value myself. Because I have to admit that I am mostly fairly lowly things, little bacteria. Oh, my goodness. Isn't it amazing and actually almost frightening to understand that we are simply, locomotion devices for bacteria and that they are running the show. So, we could even change our terminology. We could say, hey, would you like to smoke some marijuana and expand? Would you like to sit and smoke with me and be in touch with all of your senses? So that, to me, spirituality is not about retreating from life. It's about really moving out into life and making more contact with life. I did a teleseminar recently with a good friend, Aviva Ram, MD, and we talked about love, libido, and orgasms. And she was talking about the number of women that she deals with as an MD who find their libido missing in action. And I said, well, really, that's just about impossible. Because if you're alive on this planet, it's bliss, it's joy. It is orgasmic. To simply be, to breathe, to be alive is an orgasmic thing. And we must expand our definition of what it is that we are seeking. And I find that many people narrow their definition down. So is this recreational? Well, what does recreate mean? It means to recreate. In that true sense, yes, marijuana can recreate us because it gives us that expansion, and it gives us that let's be quiet for a moment. And I think we will all admit that one of the big things that is missing from our modern lives is that moment of quiet and silence. And
that's perhaps why a lot of people find an appeal to marijuana, to have that reprieve from the hectic days.
Little reprieve, right. And many people, of course, actually found that in smoking tobacco. Now, there's a big difference between smoking tobacco and smoking marijuana, but the biggest difference is that we don't honor the tobacco, we don't honor ourselves, and we don't create a ritual. We don't do those three steps. And when you look at Native people throughout the Americas who used tobacco, they did those things. They honored themselves. They honored the tobacco. They had very set rituals for it, and they didn't have any problems with using the tobacco.
I've spent a lot of time with, if I may just interject here, I've spent a lot of time with Native Americans doing a lot of interesting things with in the past, and even just smoking cigarettes. One thing that, by the way, I've quit smoking cigarettes. That's a personal choice, but I respect the natives who use it respectfully. And one thing that I've really enjoyed learning and observing a number of them do, if you watch with a keen eye, you will notice those who are respectful of the tobacco will take out a cigarette from the cigarette package, and you will notice a momentary appreciation upon their face, that they're a little prayer, so that they're not just smoking it to satisfy a nicotine fix, but to actually, of course, satisfy nicotine perhaps, but they do so with respect for the herb, for the plant. And I think that that's actually really beautiful. And I think that that respect could be extended upon, of course, our food. Even, many cultures, we give gratitude for our food before we consume it. And I think that for a lot of us here, I guess the message is to be giving gratitude to the cannabis spirit or to the plant for this marvelous gift of however we use it, whether it be recreational for recreating purposes, as you just mentioned, for medicinal or spiritual purposes. I think it's important for all of us to remember to express that gratitude. And for those who don't believe in spirituality, I'll just say this, that the attitude of gratitude, rather than thinking of it as a spiritual exercise, which it is, but it has a positive impact psychologically upon ourselves. Just having that gratitude in our hearts makes us feel better and makes us feel better emotionally, but that, of course, spills over into other aspects of our lives, physically, into our relationships in other ways as well, to experience that gratitude on a daily basis. So I just want to share that. Sorry, Susan, I don't want to take your...
If you're listening to this as a recording, go back and listen to him say that again. Listen to him say that as many times until you really get it. Every breath, gratitude. Every step, gratitude. No matter what is happening, say thank you. Say thank you. Say thank you for your life. Yes. Very, very important what you have told us. This also brings about greater self-worth, because we are now a being who brings gratitude to the table, and that makes us feel better about ourselves. There is always room for gratitude, even in the midst of some kind of horrible disaster. Like my daughter went away from her house for 2 weeks, and it got really, really cold, and one of her radiators burst and flooded one of the rooms of her house. We could say, wow, what a disaster. She said, thank you, because it prevented her entire plumbing system from freezing because all of the water had been purged from the system.
There's a gift in it.
There's always a gift. There's always room for our gratitude. Sometimes it takes a while to be able to see that gift or to even be able to say, okay, I'll accept the gift. But there's always room for gratitude there. So, again,
reminds me of the prayer that Roger Christie with the Cannabis Ministry, he says, I can't remember the word for word, but it's, thank you for the gift in this, now show me the blessing in it. But anyways, I know I'm not saying it properly. But
show me the blessing, right? Open my eyes to what I'm really here.
A nice reframe of those challenging moments in our lives.
Right. Right now I feel like having a little fit. or whatever. So I'm definitely with you. You know, spirituality is very different from religion. Mm-hmm. Spirituality means recognizing that we can be expanded, that we can be larger than our individual selves, and that we can have benefit. And I often ask people, have you ever been profoundly and beneficially influenced by someone you've never met? And everyone has answered this question, yes. I've been, profoundly beneficially influenced by people I've read about, by people that I've seen across a crowded room. Mm-hmm. So that we must recognize that we all have the ability to affect others beneficially and profoundly, even if we haven't said a word to them, even if we don't know that. So we carry that responsibility and that self-worth with us, and this, to me, is the essence and the basis of spirituality. Then whatever kinds of ceremonies you wish to engage in, from simple to elaborate. I mean, I'm sure that you have seen that among many Native people, there is a pipe that the tobacco is smoked in, and that pipe is kept in very special bags. It's not kept together. There's two different parts of it. To become a pipe holder is a very great honor and a huge responsibility. Mm-hmm. And so this is all part of that. And I say to people, let's talk about, say, a power plant that isn't perhaps so charged, like coffee. Coffee is a power plant. And you and I were talking a little bit about coffee. So we respect the coffee. How do we respect the coffee? Well, we can respect the coffee all the way back to who's growing it. We can get fair trade coffee. We can get shade-grown coffee. We don't have to abuse the planet in order to enjoy our coffee. So we start with this respect. I'm going to respect you by choosing growers who are respecting you and not people who are just ripping off the planet. And then we say, and I respect myself enough that I am going to have very special tools for creating my coffee. I'm going to have this mug, and only this mug. I do not drink coffee out of a styrofoam cup. If I want some coffee and I'm out and about, I need my mug. I need to have my special thing to put my special coffee in, and that honors me and it honors the coffee. Perhaps if you're at home, you have a special way of brewing that coffee. And the greatest health benefit from coffee is to brew it by putting the coffee in a filter and pouring the boiling water through that filter. Other methods, such as percolation and French press, do not get the polyphenols that we want from the coffee in the best possible form for our bodies. So we could think about that in terms of our ceremony as well. We're not lighting candles, we're not lighting incense, we're not chanting, we're not doing anything. We're simply creating the making of our coffee into something which is expanded, which is beyond our limited mind and our limited scope. And I think perhaps that helps us see it more clearly when we come to the more charged idea of marijuana and smoking marijuana. And I know that you wanted to talk a little bit about different forms of marijuana, using marijuana in different ways.
Yes, actually, that's. I just want to say before we transition to talking about the medicinal use of cannabis and herbs as well, I just want to say for our listeners, my intention was to end this conversation with the spiritual topic. However, it evolved somehow naturally that we've started with the spirituality, and I actually think this is so appropriate because rather than putting it towards the end where people might sort of skip or stop it. I think the message that Susan shared today is extremely valuable for us to learn to respect this plant and to work with it in gratitude and everything that she said. So I'm actually grateful, Susan, that we've actually done a complete 180, perhaps doing it the proper way of having the respect for the plant up front before we actually talk about its uses. So thank you very much for doing it this way.
You are welcome. And yes, I do feel that it is the most important thing that we come to this in that way. I did also want to mention one interesting piece of research that has just recently been done. And, you know, the science, we think of science as being neutral, but of course it's not. And we think, oh, you know, they do an experiment to see what they can find out, and they don't. In order to do a scientific experiment, you actually have to state beforehand what you think the result is going to be. And, you know, there is, as you say, there's this very deep, it's not even an undercurrent, it's an overcurrent of fear about marijuana. And so some scientists said, well, we're going to show marijuana smokers that smoking marijuana is just as bad for their lungs as smoking tobacco is, and that they're going to get lung cancer from tobacco.
I have a feeling where this is going. Yes, please continue.
What they found was that marijuana smokers are far less likely than other people to get any kind of cancer, especially lung cancer, and that smoking marijuana appears to have a protective effect against cancer.
Mm-hmm. I'm so delighted that you said that, actually.
Had you read that study? Had you heard about that?
Well, of course, I've come across that information from a number of different sources, and but
and people
having you say that.
And they say, but smoking is bad. I say, no, smoking is not bad. Smoking is, in fact, the thing that separates us from all the other life forms on this planet. Bees and ants have cultures. Birds make very pretty things. Anything that you could say, oh, well, we do this, you know, make music, make art, do this, do that. No, other things do it as well. The only thing that you will find nothing else on this planet doing except human beings is smoking.
Mm-hmm.
It is truly the thing that turns us into gods and goddesses, is to smoke.
But just going backwards in the conversation just a minute, I just want to just reiterate and say that it absolutely delights me when science goes about with an agenda to prove a certain point, and then they find that their conclusion is that their point is completely invalidated, and in fact that it's the opposite of what their hypothesis was all about. I've actually read other things, even non-cannabis. I won't mention the specific topics, but because it's irrelevant, but I respect the scientists who, upon finding that their research concludes that what they had originally surmised is inaccurate, I respect the scientists who actually present that information rather than changing the data to reflect the information that they want, because that also happens a lot in science, where they will selectively take...
It does not happen a lot. No, it does not happen a lot. It happens occasionally. And there are ways for us to find this out, and we do find this out. For instance, the idea that immunizations causes autism came about from manufactured data, and that person's articles have been stripped from the medical journals, and that person has basically been deprived of a career and sent away in, great embarrassment for doing that. We do not tolerate that. It does occasionally happen in the same way that people occasionally run a red light, but we wouldn't say that everybody always runs red lights. So, yeah, I'm with you. You know, it's excellent that we do get this from science, and that is, in fact, the way that science is set up. As a matter of fact, it's often said in science that it's not true until somebody who hates your guts can show that it's true. If you do an experiment, and somebody who hates you does the same experiment and gets the same results, then we're going to believe it.
Yeah, well, you can always set up an experiment and get the results that you're looking for if you craft it well enough. But anyhow, we won't go down that rabbit hole.
Well, you can't, but that's all right.
Yeah.
So there are lots of experiments that no matter how well you craft it, you can't get to the results you're looking for. So.
Now, of course, Susan, I highly respect you as an herbalist, and as I mentioned at the start of this call, that I've actually learned a lot from you, even though you've only just discovered my existence recently, and of course I've learned from other teachers as well. But as an herbalist, talking about cannabis, of course, there's different ways of consuming it. Of course, some people roll it up as a joint or smoke it. Some people consume it as an edible. Some people use it as a topical, and it can even be used as a suppository, which is perhaps something that a lot of people are not that aware of, or perhaps a little bit squeamish about. But in your opinion, now, of course, realizing that there's different people with different needs, so there's not necessarily a one universal answer that would be appropriate here. But can you talk about, in your opinion, how, from a medicinal perspective, regarding cannabis as a medicinal herb, how should we be working with it for the various types of ailments that or purposes that people would have for cannabis?
There's a reason that mostly we talk about smoking cannabis.
Okay.
And why I have gone to lengths to reassure people that smoking will not harm them, and that it is, in fact, a very important thing for human beings.
What about the chest congestion that we might get from smoking? If you smoke a lot of joints,
well, in fact, you've just put us beyond the bounds of good use. If you smoke a lot of joints, is beyond the bounds of good use, and that's what I was just about to say.
Okay, sorry for interrupting.
Right. For health, then, if we're going to smoke, and there are intense advantages to smoking marijuana, I would not suggest inhaling burning paper, especially not inhaling burning paper that has been bleached with chemicals that could be carcinogenic. As a matter of fact, there are some people who believe that it is not the tobacco that's carcinogenic, but the paper that it's rolled in. And there's pretty strong studies showing that this could, in fact, be the truth. Furthermore, modern tobacco, which is a very large plant, and wild tobacco is a small plant, modern tobacco needs fertilizer. It needs fertilizer. It's usually fertilized with chemical fertilizer, and that chemical fertilizer breaks down, and as it breaks down, radon gas is created and escapes. This is of no particular importance in terms of your tomatoes or your broccoli, but tobacco has a leaf that is very sticky, and this radon gas literally sticks to the undersurface of the tobacco leaf, and then when you smoke the tobacco, you are literally smoking and inhaling radon.
I've heard many people talk about the radioactive components that from the fertilizers, right?
From the fertilizer, that's exactly what it is. It's radon. And we know that this causes cancer. So we don't have to worry about this with marijuana so long as we are not using a chemical fertilizer. And again, this goes back to respecting the plant. When we respect the plant, we choose the best quality that we possibly can get. That doesn't necessarily mean the strongest. And this is very disturbing to me that in some states that I have been in where marijuana has been legalized, along with that legalization comes the injunction that it must only be grown inside. And any marijuana that is grown inside can no longer really be medicinal.
Okay.
Because it has not been exposed to the wind or the sun or the interactive communicative earth. And without going too far afield, let me remind us all that mycelium, which is the mother plant of mushrooms, underlies the soil, and this is a neural network, an internet, if you will, that passes information to all plants. All plants tap into this mycelial network that is present, and this is how the plants can be such an effective aid for spirituality for us. And what I see in states where it is legal, must be grown indoors, is that it's almost impossible for people to connect with the spiritual nature of marijuana. So, there's problems with paper. Pipes bypass those problems.
Are we talking glass pipes, metal pipes, wood pipes?
We burn a plant, we are going to release from that plant resin. And there are 4 primary poisons found in plants. Those poisons are resins, and resins are some of the most active poisons in plants. For instance, there's a resin in castor bean. And if you extract this resin from the castor bean and dip a needle in it and prick someone's skin with that needle, they will die.
Mm-hmm.
This is how active resins are. Essential oils are also poisons found in plants, and we take them out of plants and use them at our risk. What did we find when cigarettes had mint essential oil added to them? The rates of cancer went up. Essential oils
really
disturb and destroy the immune system and are as hormonally disruptive as any plastic being made. So essential oils are poisons. The fact that they can be sold is, well, without a warning. That's simply a matter of the fact that laws trying to remedy this wrong have been misconstrued, and so people have come out against them, unfortunately. Alkaloids are another type of poison that we find in plants. And alkaloids are very common. They're named for the plant that we find them in. So the alkaloid in coffee is caffeine, named after coffee. And the alkaloid in tobacco is nicotine, because the botanical name of tobacco is Nicotiana. The alkaloid in asparagus is asparagine. So you see there's a pattern here. The alkaloid ends in I-N-E. Alkaloids are so common in plants that our bodies have really adapted to them. And we talk about people whose diets are alkaloid-rich or alkaloid-poor and what's going on with their bodies in terms of dealing with these alkaloids. Insufficient quantity, either in one dose or over time, alkaloids can be problematic, but they tend to be a little less problematic unless, as I said, unless they have been removed from the plant and then concentrated, in which case we would call them a drug. And glycosides. And glycogen is sugar, so glyco is a combining word meaning sugar, and side, C-I-D-E, is a combining term meaning to kill, right? So we have homicide and fratricide and herbicide and pesticide. And so a glycoside is literally a killer sugar.
Oh, really? Okay.
Glycosides are also, like alkaloids, extremely common in plants. And there's so many different glycosides that we subdivide them by how they kill us. So we have hepatic glycosides that destroy the liver. These are primarily found in mushrooms. We have cyanogenic glycosides, which destroy nerve impulse and turn us blue, cyan, blue, and thus we stop breathing. Poison hemlock, which Socrates took, is a cyanogenic glycoside. We have cardiac glycosides, which make the heart stop or make it beat so fast that we die, and so on. Marijuana does not contain glycosides or alkaloids or essential oils. And there are plants.
So why is it so dangerous? I'm sorry.
It's not so dangerous, and there are.
It was just a joke.
There are plants that contain all four things. Yarrow, for instance, contains alkaloids, glycosides, resins, and essential oils, and is used perfectly safely. But knowing what the poison is in a plant helps us either steer clear of that poison or to magnify it if that's what we wish to use, because the reason there are two snakes on the caduceus is to remind us that healing and harming go hand in hand, and that any time we take something from a plant, purify it, and concentrate it, we are making it more problematic, more capable of harming, more capable, in fact, of even causing death.
Well, such as even heroin or cocaine or even caffeine. Like, for example, we drink caffeine, and you can actually buy caffeine powder or caffeine pills, and you can get a lethal dose of caffeine, just like you can have with cocaine, right?
Yes, exactly. And you don't even have to buy powder or pills. You can now buy all kinds of drinks that contain huge amounts of caffeine that aren't coffee.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've done a lot of research on caffeine, and anyways, I won't go into that right now. But that's definitely research, not eye-opening from the caffeine effect, but just the research itself is eye-opening. But regarding
drinking a cup of coffee is not going to kill you. We have billions of people to show us that drinking a cup of coffee won't kill you, even though coffee does contain poisons. And Dr. James Duke, a wonderful herbalist, when people ask him how safe an herb is, he refers them to the coffee index, and he rates the safety of herbs vis-a-vis the safety of coffee. So it's safer than coffee, it's less safe than coffee, it's much safer than coffee, it's much less safe than coffee, and it's quite...
And where's cannabis on that scale?
Cannabis on that scale is much safer than coffee. And one
of
the ways to make it safer is to smoke it. You see, cannabis is a variable plant in terms of its active constituent. How much of the resin, right, the tetrahydrocannabinol resin is present in there is, like with any plant, a factor of the soil it was grown in, the sunlight that it received, the amount of rain that it received, the people tending to it. In wine circles, we would call this terroir, right? The terroir of the wine, the terroir of the grape, the terroir of the marijuana. And marijuana is far more variable than grapes. So we can actually have, plants growing side by side that will have different effects, and not just on different people, but on the same person. Mm-hmm. When we smoke marijuana, we can stop our ingestion of it right now.
Right. Okay.
Right now. That's as much as I need. I'm stopping right now.
Whereas
when
if you eat it,
ingest it in any other way, you can't stop before you've gone too far. The effect of smoking it is virtually instantaneous. The effect of taking it in other forms requires our body to break down in the digestive system and then to absorb the THC. And this process,
it's a different form as well.
This process takes at least 1 hour. Now, I know that anyone who has experimented with eating marijuana, say in marijuana brownies, has found themselves overdosed.
Yes, most people I have spoken to would concur with that statement.
Because you don't know when to stop.
Yes.
And that's not very functional. The advantage to eating it is that you can do it in places where you can't smoke. The advantage to eating it is that you can be consuming it, shall we say, with...
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're smoking it, it's pretty obvious what you are, in fact, doing.
But just to play angel's advocate, and by the way, I use the term as a positive version of the devil's advocate here, to play angel's advocate here, surely there must be beneficial reasons for consuming cannabis. Once, of course, people start off with the measured doses, start off small and evaluate to determine the strength. Wouldn't there be certain advantages? Okay, so what do you think, for example, people using coconut oil or olive oil to, cook it on the stove?
It's not extracted. You don't have to. It's not an explosive process.
Okay.
You take the olives, you put them in a press, and you get olive oil. That's not an extraction.
Okay, but if you cook a cannabis, for example, on your stove in a pot of water with butter or...
That's why I was asking how he made it. That's exactly why I was asking that. Yes, okay. You can cook some cannabis in butter, or you can make a tincture of it. Mm-hmm. And the advantages are not advantages in terms of it being more useful. The advantages are simply that it is more secretive. So you can take a bottle of marijuana tincture on an airplane with you. You probably wouldn't want to label it marijuana tincture, but you can take it with you.
Call it a Bach flower remedy.
Right, call it anything you want to, and it's unlikely that you are going to get into any trouble anywhere in the world with that. And so that is an advantage in a legal climate in which marijuana is demonized or made illegal, and your freedom is at risk. That's definitely a very, very big advantage, but it's not an advantage in terms of how your body deals with it.
Okay. Well,
Because
but eating, for example, in a brownie or in foods, like, is there an advantage to using cannabis for medicinal purposes, not just for the sake of let's get high and wasted purposes, but let's for medicating purposes?
I don't think anybody can really get wasted.
Well, I'm just using the terminology.
Not a wasting thing. We don't want to use that terminology because our words create our universe, and you especially have come through a whole forest of words which have made you frightened. And so you especially do not want to add at all to that forest of words that people might pick up on. There's no waste involved there. But, yeah, once you have eaten too much, there's not too much you can do except watch the sun. Because you're not going to be very movable, you're not going to have very good control over your muscles. And unfortunately, once you have been overdosed in this way, you lose some tolerance and you become more likely to be overdosed and to lose muscle control when you eat marijuana in the future.
Okay, yes.
So, again, I do not think it is an ideal way to use it for anyone unless it is a situation in which you simply cannot smoke. And I do understand that smoking does create smell.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of smoking and smell, there's another way of consuming it. What's your thought of vaporizing it?
Again, we are making it far more drug-like. We are, again, extracting the active ingredient and leaving the other ingredients behind. Synergistic activity among the many ingredients in the plant is what holistic herbalism is about and why it's different than looking for active ingredients in making drugs. That we recognize not just terroir, but we recognize that every plant is a complex, cooperative group of hundreds, sometimes thousands of different constituents. Have you ever tasted artificial chocolate that tasted like chocolate to you? Of course not. There are over 1,000 different constituents in chocolate, and we haven't been able to even make a close approximation of that. So when we do these severe extractions, like in a vaporizer or using explosive chemicals, then we are making a plant which has, as we've been talking about, all of these spiritual possibilities for us, closer to a drug, and the production of the drug strips away that which can connect to us spiritually, that which connects to us emotionally and symbolically. So we take marijuana that's been grown indoors, we put it through a process that makes it very drug-like, and then we should not be surprised if we get drug-like side effects and repercussions from people using it that way. So I'm not against using it in different ways. I'm simply saying there are massive problems. And if those problems weigh less heavily than the problem of smoking it, I understand your desire to do it. And I agree with you that the approach should be very small and very cautious. And what I usually say to people is, whatever form you buy it in to eat it in, first take no more than half of the recommended dose.
Perhaps even less.
Yes, perhaps
for
even
newbies.
less.
For those of you who are new listening to this, start very, very minimal.
If you're going to be eating it, tiny amounts, or if you're going to be taking it as a tincture, start with 1 or 2 drops. And again, remember, it takes an hour to an hour and a half for your body to process it and for the effect to come on. So also, put on your patient hat and be patient about what's going to happen. Now, I have a friend who was diagnosed 30 years ago with multiple sclerosis. And she comes from a family with a Christian Science background. And so she elected from the very beginning not to use any drugs of any kind to deal with her multiple sclerosis. But she did decide that she would ally with marijuana. and she's just back from the doctor a month ago, and they did a brain scan, and they can find no lesions of any kind in her brain.
Mm-hmm.
And she tells them that the only thing that she's using to deal with her multiple sclerosis is marijuana. It helps keep her fairly pain-free. It does not improve her coordination, but that's one of the things about multiple sclerosis is you do lose your coordination, and the drugs don't help with that very much either. But it certainly has kept her brain very active and very free of any lesions from the multiple sclerosis. As a matter of fact, the doctor said that this was unheard of in the medical literature for anyone to, be so far along with their advanced multiple sclerosis and to have their brain completely unaffected by it.
Well, I guess they haven't looked at too many studies of people who have MS with cannabis as well. So
yes, it's one of the more researched areas now.
Dr. Montel.
Her doctor said, "Let me prescribe a Marinol for you." And so he did, and fortunately she didn't have to pay for it because, and you tell me if she's wrong about this, she told me that the Marinol that she was taking
concentrated THC
cost thousands of dollars a month, and that each pill cost more than $100. Fortunately, she didn't have to pay for it. She didn't have to pay for it. We, the taxpayers, paid for it, and she hated it. She said it turned her into a drooling idiot who sat there unable to do a thing. She makes quilts. She, talks to other people in chat rooms. She has a very active life for a person with multiple sclerosis. She can't go on walks with me, but nonetheless, she keeps herself active, mentally busy, and, busy with what she can do. And she said the Marinol just completely prevented her from doing anything at all. And she hated it. And after taking she threw it in the trash.
Just for the audience listening to this, just for those of you who don't know what Marinol is, it's a patented, and I roll my eyes about that as well. I believe it's patented. I could be incorrect, but so I won't say that with absolute certainty. But it's a pill that's concentrated THC, so it's the same thing that's in cannabis, except it's an extracted, purified drug, as Susan has been saying about any.
As soon as we extract, concentrate, and purify, we make a drug, whatever we call it, and however it's sold. Right.
And it doesn't have all the other balancing aspects that there's
expanding aspects, all of the other co-creative aspects, because remember, we don't want to be in balance. Balance is the step that immediately precedes death.
Right, and by the way, just for everybody who knows, just so that everybody knows, yesterday I had spoken with Susan. I had a pre-interview conversation where Susan shared a lot of interesting information. I've decided to include that at the end of this recording so that those of you who wish to, you can listen to that. There's a few wonderful insights there that Susan shared, and of course, Susan talks a lot about balance as well. So.
And the difference between balance and dynamic disequilibrium. Goodness, I think you told me that we were supposed to keep this to about 45 minutes.
Yes. Okay, so let me just go on to the next question here. Of course, just listening to you, Susan, you are just so fascinating. We could probably talk for hours here. But let's not go down that path.
Listeners' ears too.
Pardon me? Yes, to our listeners' ears.
Our listeners' ears, right? In their
absolutely.
Time. Hopefully.
Okay, now
just while you're listening.
Yes, of course. Now, the next question I wanted to just talk about, and there's two more questions for you. So this and, of course, the last one. Can you talk about herbs, other herbs that people might consider instead of cannabis for common benefits people would use cannabis for example, for pain, insomnia, and anxiety? And I'm going to actually combine another question here that I intended to ask you. Also talking about herbs, again, not cannabis, that nutrify, support, tonify the body for the overall health and well-being, especially for people who are using cannabis for health purposes. I'm sure they're looking for ways to strengthen their bodies and gain overall health. Can you just talk about herbs, how they can actually be beneficial for people, and why they should actually explore herbalism, not to become a professional herbalist or anything along those lines, but to explore the people's medicine. As you've pointed out at the beginning of this conversation, that 80 to 90% of the world's population do not use pharmaceuticals. They actually use herbs for their medicinal purposes. And, by the way, of course, herbs really are very powerful medicines. And we in the Western world have totally lost sight of the value that herbs really have for us, and we've lost respect for them as well. But so there's a two-part question, talking about other herbs that might have benefits for people who use cannabis for medicinal purposes, so other herbs that might have similar types of effects for those types of purposes, but also just touching upon other herbs for making the body stronger. So, Susan?
Yes, and I'm actually going to move a little bit into your very, very last question here, too. Pain, of course, is something that all human beings experience. And that means that all cultures have developed a pharmacopoeia of herbs that deal with pain. And that would, certainly be another at least 8-hour discussion about herbs that deal with pain. And so I would refer people to my online course called Herbal First Aid. And in Herbal First Aid, I talk about not just using herbs externally for pain, but also using herbs internally.
What's a website address, if you can perhaps mention that, so that people can find that?
My website is SusunWeed.com. Now, I keep the sun in Susun, but we own both Susun Weed and Susan Weed. So when you get to the website, we do ask you to register. There's no charge for registering. And once you register, then you come into the website, or you can go to the Wise Woman book. And you'll be able to see descriptions of my online courses as well as my correspondence courses, and dip into this wealth of information. Perhaps one herb that I could mention that is used very widely for pain relief is willow bark. And that's generally the bark of white willow, but it's not restricted simply to white willow. And it actually contains a compound that you might be familiar with called salicin. And when we extract this from plants, it becomes acetylsalicylic acid, also known as aspirin. And so when we take white willow bark, we are actually getting very much the same beneficial effects as aspirin, but without the detrimental effects of the aspirin. That's simply one of the literally hundreds of pain-relieving herbs there are. And when you work with an herbalist, that herbalist will help you focus in on the specific herb that will help the specific pain that you are dealing with, since pain is a very general term, but when we are experiencing it, it's a very specific term indeed. Anxiety, of course, is what can I say, the base feeling of being alive. We are all anxious. After all, you have to live on a planet with the most threatening killer animal alive, and that human beings, and not just a few of them, but billions of them. And human beings, as we know, can act very erratically. So anxiety certainly is always part of human existence. What can we do to relieve anxiety? Again, because it is such a base note in human existence, many cultures have developed quite a few ways and alliances with plants to help to deal with anxiety. One of my favorites is a very common herb throughout the northeast part of the United States. As a matter of fact, it can be considered an invasive weed, and that is Leonurus cardiaca, commonly called motherwort. Leo is lion, and cardiac is heart. And so the botanical name Leonurus cardiaca means the lion-hearted herb. And it truly gives you that lion's heart, that courage to be alive and to say, yes, indeed, life is dangerous. What's next? Motherwort is usually used as a tincture. The tea is just impossible to consume.
It's very bitter.
So nasty. And you know what? It's not very effective as a tea either. We tincture the flowering part of the plant. And you can see me doing this. You can see me making motherwort tincture on YouTube. I have about 150 YouTubes of me interacting with the plants, and it's a wonderful resource for everyone if you are interested in plants. And motherwort, one of the reasons that it's called motherwort is that it's a dear friend to women. It's a dear friend to women in puberty, a dear friend to women when they're menstruating, a dear friend to women before in the PMS part of menstruation. It's a dear friend during menopause. It's a dear friend after menopause. It's basically like sitting in your mama's lap and having your mama say, "That's okay. You go get 'em, girl." So motherwort, certainly lots of other plants, but I'm just going to hit, just touch on one in each of these categories. Insomnia. I think that one of the things that we may have talked about yesterday was my mentor's statement to me about sleep. And I said to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, my mentor, one day, I said, "I'm not getting enough sleep, whine, whine." And she fixed her glare at me, and though she is not any longer with us, her glare remains, because the woman had a wonderful glare that really made you say, "Are you thinking about what you're saying?" And she said, "Human beings don't need sleep." And I said, "Of course we need sleep. We need, like, food and water. We need sleep." It's like, because I was taught this, right? And she said, "You don't need any sleep at all. You need to rest, and you don't know how to rest." And I said, "Whoa, what?"
That's a bold statement.
Yeah. And she really brought me to my awareness of how unrestful I was. So you're driving along, and you're driving to an intersection, and the light is yellow, and you think, "Am I going to put on the accelerator and try to go through it, or am I going to stop?" And you stop. So you're the first person there at the red light. Are you sitting there waiting for the light to turn green so you can go on? Or are you resting? After all, there's nothing you can do. That light is red. Do you relax your grip on the steering wheel? Do you slow your breath? Do you find your attitude of gratitude? You can rest. You can rest. You're standing in line at the bank. You can rest. You're waiting for a program to load. You're not going to sit there and tap your fingers while you're waiting for that program to load. You're going to slow your breathing down and rest. So that when we start looking for these little opportunities to rest throughout our day, then sleep does not become nearly that important. Let me ask you if you know anything at all about...
Say the name again. Thomas Edison, you said?
Thomas Edison.
Oh, Thomas Edison, sorry. Okay. I was about to say no and humiliate myself, but no, now that I understand, yes, of course.
Most people know about Thomas Edison, which is why I asked about Thomas Edison. Was he a creative person?
Yes, I would say yes.
Highly creative person, one of the most creative people.
Lots of inventions, of course, requires creativity, right?
Did he sleep 8 hours a night?
Did he sleep 8 hours a night?
He didn't even have a bed.
Really?
He had a cot in his laboratory where he laid down and took 2-hour naps.
That opens up a whole other subject, which I don't intend to get onto this call, but it's something that fascinated me in the past. Of course, the value of power naps, quote unquote. Of course, NASA have even found that 20 to 25 minutes of napping does wonders for the person. Won't get down the details of that, but I've explored that there are ways to get by with less sleep than 8 hours, and not just get by, but actually thrive, I should say. But
thrive, yes, not just get by, but to really thrive and to really feel good and be at the top of your form.
Mm-hmm.
So, pain, hey, we all experience pain. Anxiety, yes, we all experience anxiety. Insomnia, lack of sleep, most of the time can really be remedied by changing what I call the inner dialogue or the inner voice. So I'm laying here, and hey, I travel and teach, and I wind up in strange beds. And, I'm, not my bed. Yeah. And there are times when I lay down to go to sleep, and bang, I feel wide awake.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have two choices. I can say, "Oh, my gosh, I have to teach tomorrow. I better get to sleep. If I don't get to sleep, I'm going to be a wreck. Things are going to be terrible." Toss, turn, plump my pillow, push my pillow, do my pillow, turn this way, turn that way. I have to get to sleep. I must get to sleep. I'm going to be a wreck tomorrow if I don't get to sleep. It's going to be terrible tomorrow. I'm going to be really nasty tomorrow. And guess what?
What?
My self-talk turns true.
Mm.
Or I can say, here I am in a strange place. I am alert because I don't know about this place. Let me rest in my alertness. Let me turn on some music, some soft music. let me light a candle and read. Let me rest, because I see that sleep is not a wise decision for my body right now.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps just for the audience's sake, just to give you guys something that you can actually...
Ooh, they're not guys.
Sorry, my apologies. The wonderful people, ladies and gentlemen, to have something that, if you want to research what Susan's talking about perhaps further, look into something called EFT, which is Emotional Freedom Technique, which can be actually a wonderful way to reframe the way we are talking to ourselves. And there's more to it than that. Of course, you have now the word that you can Google to learn more about. Would you concur that that would be at least a good starting point for people?
I think emotional freedom technique is wonderful, but I find that it is rather complicated for many people. And really, all we have to know is we create our lives by what we think. If you're laying there and you're thinking, I have to go to sleep, or terrible things will happen, then I guarantee you will create that. If instead you can say, oh, I'm not sleeping right now, what can I do instead?
Well, perhaps a Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life book or something along those lines. Just giving ideas for people.
Yeah, but she tends to be a little, strict in, if you have knee pain, this means you're da-da-da, and I don't...
Oh, well... Okay, yeah, no, I mean the affirmation. Okay.
The affirmations are good, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, just looking at giving people some ideas to what you're saying.
We're not talking about something complicated. We're simply talking about listen in to what you're saying to yourself and change it. Mm-hmm. And every time you hear yourself putting yourself down or telling yourself terrible things are going to happen, change it. Say, hey, I'm very grateful that I'm not sleeping now. Certainly there are many herbs that can be used for sleep. One of the primary among them is valerian. And valerian root is actually sold in capsules in drugstores as an aid to sleep. Unfortunately, approximately a third of people who take valerian will stay up all night because any herb that's a sedative can also be a stimulant. I prefer, if I'm using valerian, to use the tincture of valerian flowers, but that, of course, means you have to grow your own valerian and make your own tincture because it's not for sale in drugstores, or to use a variety of other herbs. Cannabis, which we've been talking about and are focusing on in this summit, is a plant in a very small plant family. The Cannabinaceae family contains basically only two plants, and that is marijuana and hops. And hops, humulus lupulus, humus, the earth, lupus, wolf, the wolf of the earth, hops, has many of the same effects as marijuana does. You can make a hops tincture. It's a little, but not too terrible. It's in the same family because the same part of the plant is the most active part of the plant, and that is the female flowers, which have not been fertilized. And like marijuana, hops grows separate female plants and separate male plants. So just like with marijuana, we generally only grow the female part of the hops. It doesn't need a male plant for procreation. It's a perennial plant and comes back again and again. And I have often seen people who complain that they have never gotten a night's sleep, asleep on their kitchen table with their head on their hands on the kitchen table with half a cup of hops tea next to them. Mm-hmm.
Except it's bitter as bitter as can be.
It can be fairly bitter, but if your hops are fresh, it's less bitter. And so I usually suggest that you drink your hops tea in bed. And we shouldn't in any way go past the wonderful sedative qualities of hot milk, and especially a cup of hot chocolate before you go to bed. I do have a DVD out called Chronic Problems. And in my DVD on chronic problems, I do deal far more thoroughly than we can in this short amount of time with other herbs and other what I call sleep hygiene that can help get you off. I've worked with people who are addicted to sleeping pills, and we have very quickly gotten them off those sleeping pills and into restful nights. That's what we want, is to be rested. It doesn't all just hinge on the sleep. It hinges on the rest. And then I wanted to answer your question about what else can we do, and that is to drink nourishing herbal infusions. And anyone who has any of my books, whether it's the Wise Woman Herbal for the Childbearing Year, or whether it's my latest book down there, Sexual and Reproductive Health for men and women, or any of my other books, my new Menopausal Years, The Wise Woman Way, Breast Cancer, Breast Health, The Wise Woman Way, or my big green book for everybody, Healing Wise, you will find in every book instructions on making nourishing infusions. Furthermore, I have an online course called Drink Your Way to Health with Nourishing Herbal Infusions. And you remember, you can find those online courses at the Wise Woman Bookshop or simply by going to SusanWeed.com and registering to be a member of my website. There is no charge of any kind for registering. It's kind of the new style of website that we're moving into after 10 years of not even getting so much as an email address from the people who visited our website. And nourishing herbal infusions are one of the simplest, easiest, safest, least expensive ways to power charge your health and your energy. I work with 5 primary nourishing herbs. I use them in a rotation: stinging nettle, the herb of energy rebuilds the adrenals; oat straw, the herb of libido, rebuilds the sex drive and rebuilds the nerves; red clover, the world's leading anti-cancer herb, so safe it is grown for pregnant and lactating cows; linden blossom. Most towns have a linden avenue, and you will find linden trees growing there. And the YouTubes, there's a wonderful YouTube of me and my apprentices harvesting linden in a shopping mall, because lindens are frequently planted in shopping malls because they're very hardy trees. They do great in cities and places where there's a lot of automobile traffic.
It's the same thing as basswood, isn't it?
Basswood is another name for it. And in herbals, linden is sometimes called lime blossom, just to further confuse the issue. The botanical name is Tilia, and throughout most of Europe, that's what this is called, is Tilia. And Tilia is a very powerful anti-inflammatory, and I truly believe that the vast majority of health problems that we have are simply the end result of unchecked inflammation. So drinking an anti-inflammatory herb that is safe enough for the youngest child and that is considered the world's leading flu and cold treatment and preventative certainly isn't going to hurt me, and it tastes really, really good. And then comfrey leaf. I'm a big, big fan of comfrey. I drink quite a bit of comfrey leaf. The comfrey that is grown, and so far as I can tell that is sold, is mislabeled. It's mislabeled as Symphytum officinalis, but it's not. Does have a problem, especially the root, and it can cause congestion of the veins that leave the liver. But comfrey leaf, and especially Symphytum uplandica, which is the tall, blue-flowered comfrey that we all grow. The officinalis is a short plant with yellow or white flowers. And the Symphytum uplandica that we grow is completely safe. As a matter of fact, my sweetheart, who's a great comfrey fan, I would say, he probably drinks upward of half a gallon of comfrey leaf infusion on a weekly basis. Just had a liver study test done at, let's say he's closer to 70 than any other zero-ending number. And the doctor complimented him on the incredible health and effectiveness of his liver for a man of his age. So we certainly cannot say that his drinking comfrey in lavish quantities for the past 2 decades has in any way harmed his liver. Those are my 5 nourishing herbs that I use. What I get from them in addition specifics that I said, and I didn't mention a specific for comfrey because it only affects the skin, the mucous surfaces of the respiratory, digestive, and reproductive tract, the joints, the tendons, the ligaments, and the brain where it helps memory. Other than that, comfrey does nothing. So I rotate through those 5 nourishing herbal infusions. I invite you to join me. The health that you feel will be so amazing to you, and this happens fast, usually within 7 to 10 days. One of the advantages of taking an online course is that you can chat with all of the other people taking that course, and you can read their comments. You can read comments from people saying, I drank nourishing herbal infusions, about 2 to 4 cups a day, as you suggested, and had a doctor's appointment 2 weeks later, and my doctor halved my blood pressure medication. I got my husband to start drinking these herbal infusions, and he went to the doctor a month later, and the doctor took him off all of his diabetes medications because he found that he no longer had adult-onset diabetes. These are the kinds of results we get, and we get fast, from drinking nourishing herbal infusions. They aren't drugs. They're part of your food. They're simple, nourishing plants, and that's why we don't use plants that are aromatic, because aromatic plants contain essential oils or volatile oils. They're more natural state, and they can, especially if brewed strongly, are used on a daily basis, inconvenience the kidneys and the liver. I was picking chamomile in Holland, and a woman came up to me and said, "You don't look Dutch." It's true. I look like a lot of things, but I don't look Dutch. She said, "So I want to tell you that our wild chamomile contains so much azulene, which is the volatile or essential oil, in chamomile that if you brew that for more than 2 minutes," she continued, "you're going to wind up in the hospital."
Hello, Susan, you still there?
I'm right here.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if I lost you there for a moment, or if you're...
No, I wasn't sure if you were going to say something after
Okay. I was just listening to you. On a wonderful roll, by the way. Just for what it's worth, I've been nodding my head here, just listening to you. And of course, some of the herbs that you mentioned, particularly comfrey, I love. And of course, I read your article about the fact that comfrey has been mislabeled for years now. Just got a quick question as a personal aside. So the comfrey that we have, because I have 3 strains actually that I have, one white flower, one blue, one purple kind of flowers, but it still works, doesn't it? I mean, it's still got the allantoin and all that good stuff in it, right? All the nutritive.
So the comfrey that you're growing, the one with the flowers, how tall is it when it flowers?
Oh, it's winter right now, so can't look out my window to tell you. But it's I can't remember, to be quite honest with you.
Are we talking about ankle high, knee high, waist high, shoulder high?
Let's just say, well, there's I think perhaps the white one is a little bit of the shorter one. Maybe say knee high.
I would not use the white one at all.
Okay.
The others are tall. Yes, the one with the purple flowers and the blue flowers are tall.
Yeah, the purplish flowers are much taller.
About shoulder height when it's flowering.
Yeah, and the leaves are much longer than the white. Of course, the whiter one I think was sort of almost like the base of the leaf comes down to. It's almost like it's wider near further down the leaf. It has a longer stem.
There's a wonderful place in Ontario, Canada called Richter's, Richters, Richters.
Yes, I actually live not too far from it.
Yeah, they sell hundreds of herbal plants that you can plant in your garden, but more to the point right here, they have a garden where they have grown out all of the plants that they have, and so you can go there and you can see the different strains of comfrey growing.
You get like balking or something like that?
And you can see that the Aplantica species are tall. They flower out at about shoulder height. And the Officinalis species are short. They're usually under knee height when they are flowering. The Officinalis species does contain allantoin, but it also contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids, and those pyrrolizidine alkaloids can build up in your liver and cause a congestion of the veins that take the blood out of the liver. This is not a healthy thing. Those pyrrolizidine alkaloids are not present or present in extremely minute quantities in the Aplantica that we're growing. Is not an open-pollinated plant. It's a hybridized plant. It was hybridized by Henry Doubleday, Jr. in England, and it was hybridized specifically for the purpose of removing the pyrrolizidine alkaloids so that the plant could be used as a foodstuff during World War II, where England was being carpet-bombed and finding it very difficult to grow any food. So you will notice that in the Aplantica plants, although they flower and they flower profusely, and there are many, many bees attracted to those flowers, they never set a single seed.
Okay.
And that's because they're hybrids.
So just to be clear, it's the taller blue ones, or blue, purplish, violet, whatever.
Yeah. Those flowers can fade to pink or a kind of pinky white.
Yeah, true.
So it's more the height that we're looking at.
Okay, I'll definitely be looking more into this just to make sure. But thank you very much for addressing a personal question for me during the interview. Hopefully somebody will find this information useful as well. But
well, like marijuana, comfrey has been demonized.
That's a whole other topic we can talk about as well. Yeah.
We call it comfrey the comforting.
Mm-hmm. For what it's worth, I'll just say this. It's worth for the people listening to this to go to Susan's site and learn more about comfrey. It's an absolutely marvelous plant, also demonized, as Susan has just said. But do a lot of research on it. But of course, we can't really specifically say, well, much like with cannabis, we can't say you should use it or anything.
I wouldn't suggest that people do a lot of research on it, because mostly what they're going to get is untrue.
Yes, I completely concur with that, actually. But of course, there's been a lot of.
What I would say is, go and breathe with the comfrey. Let's bring this talk right back around to where we started. Go and breathe with the comfrey and say to them, can you offer me any help? And if the comfrey says yes, then continue to breathe with the comfrey and try making the nourishing herbal infusion and drinking it and see what your body says. Does your body say, give me more of this, I like it a lot? Does your body say, watch out, this isn't good for me?
I had an interesting spiritual experience with the comfrey plant. I won't share it right now, but it's a good plant. I'll just say that much, and I will just refrain from going any further down that road.
Yes, we could profitably spend an entire summit.
An entire day.
Right. So when you're done with your cannabis summit, maybe you want to do a comfrey summit too, because again,
Comfrey World Summit, 2014.
Absolutely. And so I want to remind everyone that herbal medicine is people's medicine. This is a medicine that is right outside your door. You don't need to know any more than one plant. You know one plant. You can start using that one plant. And yes, marijuana is an herb, and I define a drug as something that cannot be made in your kitchen.
Just based on your statement there, right outside your door, before we wrap this up completely, can you just say, right outside your door, you must have a dandelion? Can you just say something about the beloved dandelion plant?
Oh, well, what can we say? I've written in my big green book, Healing Wise, I have over 30 pages about dandelion, including all kinds of dandelion recipes. Dandelion is perhaps one of the most generous plants, and especially to someone who's starting their interest in plants, because you can use any part of the dandelion. You can prepare it in any way: tea, infusion, vinegar, honey, oil, tincture. Any part of the plant, prepared in any way, and harvested any day of the year, and it will work. It will work to help restore digestive integrity, to eliminate acid reflux, to increase the amount of nutrition that you're getting overall from your food, and to help protect you against breast and prostate cancer. Just a few of the things I have to say about dandelion in Healing Wise, my big green book for everybody.
And so, of course, to go back full circle, everybody breathe to the dandelion. And also regarding...
the dandelion, yes.
Yes,
because
and of course...
giveaway breath. We take in what they put out. They take in what we put out.
And for everybody who's listening to this, I will provide links to everything that Susan has mentioned, to her website, to her books, to her various other resources online. Just simply go to the speaker information page and click on Susan Weed's bio, and somewhere on the bio will be provided all those links so that you don't have to write them down. You can just simply click on them and make it easy for you, okay?
Oh, that's so gracious. We are very grateful.
You know what, Susan? As I mentioned to you before the interview, and I'll just say this for everyone's benefit. Of course, I said this. I hold you in very high respect, as I'm sure that a lot of people who've listened to throughout this interview all the way to this point would have already recognized that you are someone definitely worthy of respect. I'm happy to share the information because, remember, the summit is not for any other purpose than to really share information that can help people. Cannabis can help people, but I also invited you to be a part of the summit because you have so much wisdom about the herbs, and I would love for people to have the opportunity to explore more about herbs, and the best way to start doing that is going through Susan's websites, and I'll point to the moon, proverbially speaking, by pointing at Susan. So if my finger is pointing towards the moon, towards more herbs, start looking at Susan's stuff.
Thank you so
Susan,
much. And I also want to say that I've started something new, and literally this week we started it, and that is my mentorship site. And that's Wise Woman Mentor. And again, your initial level is absolutely free. We call it the seeker level. And then there are varying levels which we do ask you to pay, and we give you a huge variety of things. At the very first level, the crystal level, you'll receive information on a daily basis, a short article that I'm writing on a daily basis for people, as well as at the next level up, you receive those daily things, and you get a talk time with me. So we're very excited about the possibilities at this mentorship site, wisewomanmentor.com. Any of my sites, you will find lots and lots of information. We invite you to come and play with Green Blessings.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you so very much for sharing all your wisdom with us. Susan, I don't think there's enough words to express my gratitude, so thank you.
You are welcome. Green Blessings, everybody, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.